Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for clicking on the video. A slightly different video this week, as you've probably realised already from seeing the journey in. For those who have followed me on Instagram for a while, and even in previous YouTube videos, you'll know that I'm involved in woodland restoration projects. You know, this is part of my job. I am a forester by profession, and I just thought I would give a little insight into, you know, a typical day of mine. And although I say typical, it's definitely not the norm, unfortunately. My job is becoming more and more computer based as the days go by, but I still get to do days like this, and I get to come out and check the areas that I'm managing, that we've planted trees in. Sort of take it back to basics, because I know some people just aren't aware of some of these things. You know, like I say, I'm a forester, and a forester is just someone who manages forest. You know, like you would get a farmer to manage a farm. And as a forester, you know, I'm qualified to manage the full range of forestry operations, from planting through to felling. But in recent years, I've mostly been focused on planting. So I'm a forest management forester, and I know that sounds a little bit of a mouthful, but that is my job title. And the bread and butter of my job is coming in behind areas that have been felled for timber, and I would be the person responsible for managing the restock planting or the replanting of that area. And like I say, that forms the core of my job, but I'm lucky in that I've got quite a unique beat, and it includes areas like Glen Affric. And in Glen Affric, we're not managing the forest for commercial purposes, we're managing it for environment and habitat. And as many of you'll know, there's a considerable remnant of native woodland left in Glen Affric, but at the same time, the majority of Glen Affric is treeless. And as part of our management here, we're trying to expand and restore the native woodland here. So part of my job is to find suitable areas for planting, and this is one of them. We're right out the west end of Affric. We're actually just across the river from the Alt Bay Youth Hostel. So some of you will be aware of where that is. We're just off the Affric Tail walking route. So if you're coming through here, I would encourage you. There's access into this fenced enclosure. Come in and have a look at the trees and see how well they're doing. But yeah, part of my job is to fence and plant these remote areas, and the idea behind it is not to try and cover the whole area with trees. We don't want to kind of be disturbing the ground and planting every square inch. We're trying to establish good, robust seed sources in these areas, and once these seed sources get established and start to look after themselves, the hope is that it seeds in to a lot of the open areas. And as you can see, these trees here, they were planted in 2016, and they're doing very well considering where they are. It's very exposed out here. Things grow very slowly. The ground is nutrient poor. But yeah, after 6 or 7 years, some of them are 12 feet or higher. So it's fantastic to see them like that. So yeah, today I've taken the quad bike, I've got the dog, and we've just come out to have a look at some of this progress. But also we've done another bit of planting here just this past spring. We put another 8,000 trees in here just to give it a little bit of a boost, and it was to check on that as well. And the reason we come out at this time of year obviously is because things are in full leaf, so it's more obvious to see how well things are doing. I was out here back in I think it was March time before the planting took place, and that was to check this fence and see if it was secure. Because the biggest risk to the fences out here is basically snow, basically snow load. The snow will build up behind the fence, it's just the weight of it will push it over. But thankfully this fence is really solid and it's still doing its job, obviously, in keeping the deer out. And just while we're talking about fences, until there's a wider joined up approach on the overall deer population in the area and similar areas, fences are key. There's no point planting trees here without fences because it's just a waste of time and money, and a lot of money too. They'll just get eaten by the deer because in large parts here there's nothing else to eat. So as soon as you put some young juicy trees on the ground, they're gone. So a necessary evil is what I call them. And again, it's not easy to get these fences in here. You're talking helicopter, remote working for the contractors and the people doing the work. And even when it came to the planting of this area back in 2016, 2017, the planting contractors actually stayed over at the youth hostel, because it just took too long to keep coming and going in and out of the glen. In terms of myself visiting here, this is one of the most remote spots in my whole beat, and it takes an hour to drive from my office to the end of the public road. It's another 25 minutes to drive in on the access track to Athenamilla Bothy, where I left the van and the quad. And then it's another 7 kilometres on the quad to get to this enclosure. And then of course the enclosure is quite large as well, and it takes quite a while to go from end to end if that's what you want to do. So all in all, you're talking at least a couple of hours to get to this point before you do anything. There's added risks as well. You know, safety, especially if you come out on your own. There's no phone signal here at all, so we have safety systems that we log into. I've got a spot tracker. I carry a satellite phone as well, just in case. So, you know, it's nice enough today and things are straightforward, but in these areas, you know, things can go wrong very quickly. You know, if you have an accident and it's serious enough, you're talking helicopter extraction out here. Just, you know, there's no way for the emergency services to get in without a helicopter. And even if you have someone with you that can take you back, you're talking, you know, over 2 hours to get to the nearest hospital. So yeah, it can be a bit risky, but very rewarding as well, because you get to spend time out here. So before I move on, I'll just talk a little bit more about the bit that was directly behind me there. And as you'll see, it's planted quite densely, and we planted these at 10,000 to the hectare, which is very dense, but we planted them in small clumps. And the main reason for that was to mimic, you know, sort of natural seed pulses, we would call it. So you would get a big dump of seed in one area, you know, and things would shoot up together. But it also provides mutual shelter for the trees, which is kind of critical out here, because, you know, a young spindly tree out on its own with the snow and the wind and the rain, it's just going to get battered into the ground and it doesn't stand a chance. And, you know, it's clear that it's working. So in terms of species planted, you know, it's all native, and all broadleaves at the moment. And you're probably thinking, Glen Affric, why are you not planting pine? And the truth is, we can't at the moment. There's a pine disease that's swept through the UK. It tends to affect the non-native lodgepole pine more, but it is known to affect Scots pine, and it's called Dothostroma needle blight, DNB for short. And it basically ends up with the tree defoliating, you know, losing all its needles, and it dies essentially. And yeah, if we were to plant Scots pine in here, you know, trees that come in from somewhere else, there's a risk that those trees could already have the disease. We bring it in, and not only would the young trees die, but we risk the ancient Caledonian pinewood as well. So I don't know, I can't remember how long it's been now, but at least 5 years, it's probably more. You know, we can't plant pine within a certain distance of existing ancient Caledonian pine woods, which makes sense, but it's just a shame that we've got such big areas with no pine in them. The enclosure, I'm not sure if you can see it on the camera, but there's a second enclosure just beside this one. This was an extension, and that's full of birch and pine, but that enclosure's been there for the past 20 years, so it was before the DMB came in, before my time as well actually. I think a lot of it is regen, but there might have been some planting too back in the day just to help it along. But it's looking fantastic at the moment. So eventually, you know, there is a seed source for pine eventually, so it's not the end of the world. And maybe one day we will be able to plant pine in these bits. But yeah, what we have planted, we've got downy birch, we've got rowan, aspen, dwarf birch, a little bit of sessile oak, bird cherry. Trying to think what else. We have got more. We've planted some of the sort of montane willow specialists as well. So we've got downy willow and woolly willow. We've got some eared willow too, a more common one. So there's a good mix of stuff in here. And again, some are probably thinking, well, after you fenced it, you know, why didn't you just leave it to regen? Why did you go to the effort to plant? And the truth is, it's such a big area and there's so little seed source. For most of those species I've just listed, there's no seed source out here at all. You know, those species are long gone. And I think with the climate crisis and things at the moment as well, you know, we can't afford to wait 200-300 years for things to come back on their own. You know, we have to step in, and I know that's not always great. You know, it can cause other problems sometimes. I think in this case, you know, we need to. And like I say, we're just trying to develop a seed source here and then let it do its own thing. So we're giving it a leg up, if you want to think of it that way. Anyway, I think that's it for this video. Just a short one, just a little insight into what I do. But yeah, just gonna make my way back. I've been wandering around for a couple of hours now, even though it's looking like it on the video. But yeah, if any of this interests you, you know, just check out the normal links in the description. If you've got any questions at all, I'm more than happy to answer them. And like I say, any feedback on this kind of stuff too, just yeah, let me have it. But yeah, otherwise I'll sign off here and I'll see you on the next one.